So Forest is set to put together a £150 million war chest for this transfer window and are looking to get 6 new players. Welcome to your Forest transfer news. Hi guys, hope you're doing well and welcome to your transfer news. Coming up, I've got loads of information to bring you guys on who Forest are looking at, who's potentially leaving, some old flames that Forest want to reignite, some players that will most likely be staying at Forest. This is a filled episode of news. So you know the drill. Hit those likes and follows and everything. And make sure you check out OK Jerseys. Get your World Cup shirts before the World Cup starts. £15. Use code FFTV. You get a further 8% off. Alrighty then, let's get into the news and let's talk about this. So, where do we start? So, the £150 million that's being talked about. There's an article put out in the Daily Mail. Now, I don't really give the Daily Mail that much credence, but there's a lot of information within there that does line up to things I've been hearing, things we've been hearing in the news and everything on Forest. Now, for the £150 million war chest Marinakis is looking to put together to emerge, then it would require the sale of, yes, you guessed it, Elliot Anderson. There is a growing feeling that Anderson will be leaving. I'm still not that convinced. I just still think, when I say I'm not convinced, I just think there's a lot of moving parts that still need to happen. I don't see a world where it happens before the World Cup unless someone comes on with the exact valuation that Forest have of him. 115, love it. But anyway, so let's just, for the sake of this one, let's assume that Anderson goes to whoever for 115 million. Forest are then going to put some more money together, potentially with Callum Mwendo staying out of Frankfurt, although they're trying to negotiate a fee, which we told you about 4 months ago. There is an option for them to buy, but they want to reduce it. There's also positions that will need to be strengthened. So if we assume Elliot Anderson goes, then obviously we need a replacement there. Hayden Hackney's been the name that's flown around, but Everton look like they're moving stronger on him. Forest potentially, and I'll get to the article in a second, are looking to buy a new striker up front, willing to spend 40 million. An avenue they've looked at, we told you about, was Mateta again, but the feeling is he wants to go to Serie A. So there's a few other names. Openda, who I really like, the Belgium attacker, lightning fast, my kind of striker. Forest are keen on him. We'll do a separate video on that one. And then talks about who's staying and what's going on. So let's start with this article. It's quite a long one, so get yourselves a drink, but there's a lot of important information here. So Forest transfer briefing. Inside the £150 million spending plan with 6 signings targeted, the strikers on shortlist, including Juventus star, with £40 million set aside for a target man, plus 3 young centre-backs and 2 Scottish midfielders on the radar. That's got to be the longest title I've ever seen in my life. Forest want a British transfer record fee for Elliot Anderson. I'm not going to go over the Elliot Anderson stuff. There's nothing in there that I haven't already shared with you guys about that's happening, so no new information there. But when they come onto the recruitment, because we talked a lot about players going out. Now, what they're saying is that Forest are willing to pay competitive rates of up to 120k now. This is because PSR is now done and dusted. Now, I will come back to you guys on a new video about squad cost rotation and how that works and everything, so keep an eye out for that. But with that in mind, Forest can open the purse strings up a little more. It goes on to say, apart from the obvious need to replace Anderson with a young, more defensive midfielder, they are prioritising signing a box-to-box player for their engine room, a centre-back and a striker before bolstering up other areas for their squad. Up to 40 million could be set aside for a target man. Injury to Chris Wood certainly, what the hell does that say? Stemmed the focal point of their attack last season. And Taiwo and Igor Jesus and Luca all struggled to make goal-scoring impacts. Afterward, had scored 20 leagues, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we know all that. Let's move on to the next bit. So here it is. Crystal Palace's Mateta has been discussed, but the France striker would prefer a move to Italy. Juventus have revived their interest in Mateta, and in turn, that could open the door for Forest to try Italian side Belgium striker Louis Openda. Bring him to me, man. Bring him to me. Forest also in discussion with Frankfurt. I've told you guys about that. I think this will probably be saying the same thing. Bundesliga club, yeah, they want to pay a lower fee. Anyway, but he could end up at Forest. It then goes on to say, blah, blah, blah. Bologna's Santiago Castro is one that has been suggested to them, but other options are being considered. And then the bit about Hayden Hackney, Forest have looked into it. And then the other one, bringing Engels back in from Celtic, I wasn't that convinced about it in January. Kone, who plays for Saudi league club Nottingham, has been discussed, as have hip standouts Josh Mulligan and Rangers youngster Bailey Rice. A move for the Inter Milan David Fratisi could be revived, but his preference last time was to stay in Italy. So these are a lot of the names that we saw in January, with a few new ones. Kone, for example, Penda, yes please. Those kind of players are ones that are being brought up. But there is some interesting information here on players that are going to stay. So McAtee is expected to stay after a middling first season since joining from Man City. The talk around the club is they really do like McAtee. I'm willing to forget last season with him and let's see what he does in season 2. Now here's the big information. And so too is Morgan Gibbs-White, aka Stayen. The 26-year-old put a new deal after Tottenham triggered his release clause last year and has had another strong and influential season, despite the view of England coach Tuchel scoring 15 Premier League goals. Spurs, Chelsea, Villa and Man U are all amongst Gibbs-White's admirers, but they already have players in his favoured position. More could develop as the window progresses, particularly if Arsenal and Chelsea activate interest in Villa Morgan Rogers. However, Forest want to give him at least one more year. Now, this lines up with what I'm hearing. I'm even hearing that Gibbs-White is going to be in talks for a new contract, and Forest do not want to sell him. And Gibbs-White has got no real flavour to leave. Yet there are loads of Spurs creators and sources saying, oh, Gibbs-White, he's going to Spurs again this season. They just don't learn. Now, in defence, offers are expected for Murillo. Forest Brazilian was previously courted by Real Madrid, but has had a hamstring injury which has slowed interest down. And this was the point I was making to you guys, that when Murillo signed a new contract, all it really means, the papers, it's not worth the ink is written on. All it really means is that Forest have more protection and therefore could demand more of a fee. So there still could be a chance that he goes, especially when we're seeing Jan Zolkowski, the one we did a video about. I'll leave that on the end screen for you. That one I'm hearing is getting a lot closer. They've also inquired, so much going on at Forest at the moment. Tiate, I like him at Frankfurt, and Lucchini as well at Bologna. A key characteristic that Forest are looking for is experience in a player who could come in and start straight away for them. So what they're saying there is, we're not looking for a Jair Cunha to develop, a Tyler Binden to develop. We need kind of oven ready-made players. They also want goalkeeper cover, ideally a homegrown one under the age of 21 who could push for the more experienced ones. I've heard rumours about Dean Henderson, but we'll get onto that at a later date. And cover a right back. An attacking-minded profile is desired who can impact off the bench for about 15 minutes per game. So then it goes on to say about Forest season and everything else, and the rest of it is not related to transfer stuff. But a very interesting article with a lot of details. Now, do I believe all of that? No. There's certain things I do and don't. I still think everyone's moving too mad on this Elliot Anderson thing. He's out in America. The only people discussing him right now will be his agent and Man City and Forest, right? He's going to be almost a third party to the discussions. Now, there's been talks about Elliot Anderson has agreed personal terms with Man City, and the only final hurdle that's left is Forest to agree a fee with Man City directly. Again, I'm still not convinced, because there was reports back in January saying, Elliot Anderson has already agreed to Man City and all this stuff. Again, it's just more hype being pushed on this story. And I still feel that Man City, I don't know if they want to go as high as Forest. And the point there is that Forest don't need to sell him. So if Man City don't meet Forest valuation, it's like, okay, try again next year. So that's one thing. In terms of this whole plan, though, it does sound like it's derived on the sale of Elliot Anderson, as I said at the start. But even if we weren't to sell Elliot Anderson, Forest can still have a comfortable window and probably spend 60 to 90 million pounds quite comfortably and still be within the financial regulations as well. But the interesting player there for me is Openda. That's a player who's on my radar and I really like. We will do a separate video because I know I've blabbed on for about 10 minutes here. But there's a lot of information there for you guys to sum up. So those those earlier reports a couple of weeks ago saying Forest were expecting a quiet transfer window, maybe 2, maybe 3 players in and out. It's never like that with Forest, is it? But let's see how it plays out. So £150 million headline. Let's see what Marinakis does with the money. Make sure you've liked and subscribed. Get your thoughts in on all those names. Who do you like? Who do you want to see at the City Ground? Let me know. We'll see you on the next one. Come on, you Reds.